Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Oh, welcome back to the Launch Code. Today we've got, a very interesting and I would say probably one of the most accomplished veteran entrepreneurs and businessmen that we've ever had. So we're super excited to have the one, the only, Bill Foley today. I don't even know how to introduce you, to be honest with you, whether I should introduce you as the hockey team owner, whether I should introduce you as a businessman, whether I should, there's such a wide variety of things that I've read that you've done. I'd prefer it if you introduce yourself, if you could do that for us.
Well, I'm most proud right now of being the president and CEO of the Golden Knights, Vegas Golden Knights Hockey Club.
Okay.
And we're having a great time here. We're in Vegas, and we're started from scratch, from ground zero, and built this club.
And how many years ago was that?
We actually started the process a little over about 3.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. First conversation with the league. And the league was very non-committal. We had a simple little meeting in Pebble Beach with the commissioner and Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner, and David Zimmerman, who's their legal counsel. And we met there with AEG and MGM because they wanted to hear about the arena to really get some assurance there was going to be an arena. And they said, and thank you for coming, and we'll get back to you. That was the level of interest they had in me or my group of actually getting this team going. But they were always supportive of a hockey club here.
Well, I want to go back because I want to get to the evolution and how you ended up here. So I want to go back to I read up a little bit on you coming into here. So you grew up in Austin, Texas, is that right?
I was born in Austin, Texas. My
Okay.
dad was in the service. My mom's side of the family were from the Panhandle of Texas, a little town named Goodnight, Texas. Mm-hmm. And then my dad's side of the family were railroad people from Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
Nice.
So, I
Your
grew
dad
up.
was in the Air Force?
Yeah, my dad was in the Air Force. He was service. He actually flew in World War II. He was. One interesting little tidbit is when he was in North Africa, he was Patton's personal pilot. So that was-
really?
No way.
So
Yeah,
that was,
that's a name
awesome.
drop right there.
yes, that's pretty exciting.
Heard of Mr. Patton.
Yeah, and my dad told me that before they took off and were going somewhere, that General Patton would come up and say, "How's it look today, Captain?" And General, flying's going to be good. It's going to be clear, whether it was going to be clear or not. And so that was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting experience for him to be around a guy like that. So he was in North Africa and Sicily, and then he came back to the States. He was a C-47 pilot, so drop paratroopers.
I imagine you probably traveled around
Jumped out of one of those before myself.
Really?
Yeah, same. I never C-47. We were God, what were we? I think we were C-119s back when I went to jump school.
Nice.
I think they were C-119s out the back.
119, yeah.
Yeah, out the back.
So how long did he serve?
He was in for 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he retired as a colonel. It's just he graduated the day he graduated from Williams Air Force Base from pilot training was December. The day before was December 6th, 1941.
Oh,
They
wow.
went down and they were celebrating December 6th and December 7th. And that morning they were down having breakfast, and there was a recall to base. And they were having a big breakfast, I guess, and the guys were all getting ready to get up. And he said, "Boys, let's sit down here and have a beer. It's going to be a long war."
Wow.
Wow.
Pretty interesting. Pretty
That's
cool, huh?
really
that's-
cool.
Yeah, pretty interesting story.
So when you were growing up, and one of the questions I like to ask is you obviously joined the military. You went to West Point first, I know that, but was that something that you wanted to do early on in your child development? You wanted to be a soldier or a sailor or an airman? What did you want to do when you were a kid?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of a goof off, and that's all the way through high school. I really didn't know. I knew I did not want to be in the military because you've got to do things. You got to do things that people ask you to do or order you to do that may be inconvenient or you may not want to do. And I was not a very disciplined person. I didn't like to follow orders, and I didn't want to be in that kind of a box. But as you kind of get going through high school, and I was goofing around, and I remember my dad came back from the officers club. He had a few drinks, and he said, "Okay, where are you going to go to? When are you going to go to college?" I said, "Well, I'd go to William & Mary or UVA, or if my last resort is University of Maryland, because we were Maryland residents." He was at Andrews, and he said, "Well, that's great, but if you're going to do that, you got to, you got to work your way through school." I said, "Oh." So it's not a free ride. That's interesting. He said, if you would you go to a military academy? And just to be kind of a jerk, I said, well, I would never go to the Air Force Academy, ever. I would only go to West Point, because that's where the tough guys went.
Right.
So, well, that one thing led to another, and
Found yourself at West Point.
and there I was after all the deadlines, after everything, and suddenly the principal, they have principal and you have alternates. I was a fourth alternate, so I was way down the list. There was no chance I was going. And the principal broke his wrist. The first alternate flunked the physical aptitude test. You go there for a couple days and you get tested, and they allegedly make sure that you're physically capable and you're mentally strong and so on. So the physical aptitude test. The second alternate flunked the mental aptitude test. The third alternate flunked the physical aptitude test, and I was in. How did it happen? I don't know. Strange things.
It's a crazy course of events.
Yeah, strange thing. Maybe it was meant to be.
Well, what year did you graduate from? The academy?
67.
Okay,
1967.
So Vietnam's basically in
Full swing.
yeah. Full tilt.
Oh yeah, full swing. We didn't, when we were there, we didn't really, we didn't pay attention. West Point is, in those days, the guys that went to West Point, about half really wanted to be there. They were following their duty was calling, or their dad was in the military, and they wanted to go, and they wanted to be part of that structure. And half of us did not want to be there. We had no interest in it. We were just trying to avoid doing as much as we could avoid doing every day. And we dodged, we had to do everything because it's pretty disciplined. I mean, you had to go to every class, and you were disciplined, but we were trying to just fight the system. So that's half the guys there. So I was in that half. And during the time period, Vietnam was building up, but we were in a bubble. We were in a cocoon. We never got out. I had a weekend a semester as a cow, which is a junior, and I had 2 weekends a semester as a firstie or a senior that I could leave post. So we never went anywhere.
Right.
There's no social media or anything back then.
Right.
So
No, we couldn't have a radio. You couldn't have a radio until March of your first year, and that's when we got our cars. We couldn't drive. You couldn't do anything. So we weren't really paying attention to what was going on until they started announcing guys getting killed at the every dinner in the mess hall, and they would say, "Well, sorry to announce that First Lieutenant XYZ has just been killed in the Republic of Vietnam."
They were announcing the West Point graduates that had passed.
Yeah. And it started getting more and more, and then when you got out, you kind of got it. You started realizing everyone was going, and it was going to be kind of it was not a good thing. And our class was just we were just in a perfect storm. We had 30 guys were killed out of my class.
Wow.
Out of 584.
Wow.
So it's eye-opening. It makes you really think. We were just fodder, going over there, fighting a bad war.
Right.
Bad war.
Have you, which is kind of off the subject, but PBS did a documentary on Vietnam this year. We've all watched it. Ken Burns did it. Have you seen that yet?
I've seen parts of it. We did one called In Harm's Way that we produced, and it was a good video. It was a little amateurish, but Ken Burns was a commentator on that video, or on that movie, and it's been shown on PBS and a few other channels. But it was really about the class, and it was interviewing different people, and the graphics weren't real good, but the storyline was really good. The storyline was terrific. It really got the gist of what was going on those 3 or 4 years after we got out.
Can you say that one more time, what it was called, just for the...
Into Harm's Way.
Into Harm's Way, okay.
Yeah.
And is there somewhere where can people find that?
I'm sure you can find it online. It's been on PBS. I have a video of it, that I've seen a couple times, and probably interviewed 10 or 12 guys that graduated, and they kind of they were weaving their story through what was going on at the time.
Right.
It was interesting.
What was your MOS or job in the Air Force?
Well, I went in the Air Force, and I was going to be a pilot, and then by the time at West Point, they're really worried about you getting off target, so they work you to death the last year. So I had we pulled all-nighters probably 3 nights a week, studying, getting stuff ready. So my eyes deteriorated, and when I took my flight physical, they said, okay, well you can't be a pilot. You're 2040 and 2030. You had to be 2020 in those days. They needed more pilots later, so they actually adjusted it so you could have a little eyes didn't have to be perfect. But they said, don't worry about it. You're going to be you'll be fine. Just take your flight physical in the summer after your eyes calm down. And I took it again, and I got a call from a guy that was kind of helping me, my handler in the Air Force. He said, "Good news, Lieutenant. You're in." I said, Great. When do I, going to go down to Williams probably? Well, no, you're going to be a navigator. I said, yeah, I don't know about flying the back seat of an F4. I don't think that's going to work for me. So I just, I went in the Air Force Systems Command, and I had a very interesting job. I was negotiating contracts at the Boeing Company. And I did it for 4 years. So I started out as a industrial engineer and made some good calls and did some good analytics. And I was a development engineer working on the short-range attack missile, which was the precursor to the cruise missile. It was a great standoff weapon. You could fly, you could drop it. I think it was 50 miles out, and it had ground terrain sensing, so it could hug the ground, or you could drop it about 75 miles out and it went ballistic and dropped down. So we designed a system on B-52s that carried 16 SRAMs in the belly of the B-52, and 4 on each wing, so 24 nuclear warheads on a B-52
Holy smokes.
standoff weapon, and I'm convinced it's the reason why the Russians folded.
Wow.
They saw this, they couldn't stop it. We've got 300 B-52s or wherever it was at that time, and they're going to drop these short-range attacks missiles. And, of course, they kept on getting – the standoff distance kept on getting more and more. It was 75 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, and they couldn't deal with it. And then I became a contracting officer working on the Minuteman III program, the Burner II second stage space booster, satellite space booster that was launching spy satellites, and the SRAM. So I had a great experience. I had a personal authority of about 500 million that I could sign personally on.
Wow. And how long were you in, sir?
Just 4 years. 4 years.
Well, that generation really changed the game with regard to air superiority. Jared and I were talking to Tim Kennedy the other day, and he said it's surreal how long the U.S. has had air superiority.
Right.
He's a special forces guy that fought in the UFC, and he said, I've never been in a gunfight where I'd looked up and saw a plane and felt scared. Because I knew it's us, right?
Yeah, complete air superiority, complete
decades.
Yeah, domination in terms of nuclear delivery systems, and we were also worried about the Russians, and they were an empty suit. Really,
right?
They really, they collapsed because I guess they couldn't make enough vodka for them for them to drink all the time.
That's funny.
So when you transitioned out, you were in Washington State. Were you up in Washington State at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was stationed at the Boeing Company at the Missile Production Center, and then I got out, and while I was in, I was getting bored, so I got an MBA at night at Seattle.
Oh, just that little
boredom
boredom degree.
I'll tell you, it was for me after West Point. We graduated with 220 semester hours in 6 years. So we did 6 years of college. In 6 years of college, or a little over 6 years of college in 4 years, then we marched. We had to play a sport.
Right.
You had to be, military discipline. So by the time I was doing this MBA, it was. I was used to working 20 hours a day.
Right.
This was like easy. So it was really pretty easy. But I was prepared. I was ready.
So did you have something in mind when you were going back for your MBA, and then you went back for a law degree later, right?
Yeah, I always loved the stock market and finance. So
Okay.
I was thinking I might be a financial analyst or, of some sort. And I decided, I've got the discipline of engineering discipline. I've got the business discipline. I wanted to get the legal discipline of the Socratic method, where you go to law school and you're kind of interacting with the teacher, and it's terrifying, but they're asking you questions about a case and what about this? They make you feel like an idiot, and then so I wanted that, and I did that, and I actually practiced law for about 10 years.
Wow.
After I got out of law school.
So you transitioned out from there and went straight into law, or were you doing other things too?
No, I went straight into law, but I was always started out being in litigation, and I morphed over to business, and I found that I had a knack for business. I had a knack for figuring out how to do a transaction and how to structure a transaction. And I realized after about 8 years that I should probably be in business. So I was just looking for an opportunity to move on to the business side and get out of the legal side.
Is that when Fidelity came around, or was that earlier?
No, I got involved with Fidelity in like 1981 or so, and arranging acquisitions for the company that owned it, and then I did a leveraged buyout of Fidelity National Title at the end of '84. And I stopped practicing law, and that was my deal. So I borrowed everything I could to be a 50 or 60% owner in the business, and we had a lot of leverage, and we worked our way through it. It was a pretty interesting experience. I signed every check over $500. We didn't have any money. I had to make sure I knew where that money was going.
How big was it? How big was it at that time when you?
We were doing about net worth of $3.5 million.
Okay.
We paid $20 million. We put down $7 million, borrowed $13 million, roughly. And the company had done about $49 million of revenues in 1984, and made a little money.
Right.
Made $1 million or a little over $1 million, and then we just started growing it. And just got on making acquisitions and consolidating and changing the business model. The title business was old line, green eye shade, and what I did was I changed the mindset from preparing this perfect title report to making sure we were satisfying our customers, which were the real estate agent or the lawyers, and being very customer oriented and putting a sales force in place. And I put in incentive programs for our escrow officers, our salespeople, and our county managers. So we had the best paid people in the title business. And it took a while, but we started attracting more and more talent. And today, in our business, Fidelity has about $10 billion in revenue. It's the most. We make about 60% of the industry's profits.
Wow.
Even though we're only 42% of the national market share.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah. So we make the money.
Right.
And I'm proud to say I've created more millionaires in that business than I don't know who would compare to me. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of millionaires have come out of Fidelity National Title.
So you'd say your model is kind of not just customer experience, but also employee experience as well, as kind of what you built your business around.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I developed a philosophy back in 1984. And when I rolled it out to everybody, they were like, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense." But it was really simple. It was bias for action. Make a decision, implement the decision. If you can't get the decision, if you made the wrong decision, reverse and go a different direction. Autonomy and entrepreneurship. Make everyone a leader in their own right. Delegate not just responsibility but authority, but then manage it. Minimize bureaucracy. Don't have these layers of bureaucracy. Get rid of all of them. Manage by walking around. So I always believed in leading from the front and always doing any job that anyone had in the title business, whether it was closing an escrow deal or selling to a customer. I did it. I wanted to make sure I knew everything that someone was confronted with, so I could understand it and I could fix it and make it better. And I think our last precept was employee ownership. So we developed a program that every employee could buy stock in the company, and we matched it. If you were an officer, we matched $1 for every 2 you put up, and if you were not an officer, it was $1 for every 3. And it was matched quarterly, and we set it up so it wasn't deferred. So if you didn't get your matching contribution for a year, so if you left in that year period, you didn't get the contribution. But you could buy the stock on March 30th, and on April 1st, you could sell the stock and still get your match a year later. Now, people didn't do that.
Right.
And that's where these millionaires were created. They bought the stock, they held on to the stock, and I still get emails, thanking me. Boy, thank you for getting me that stock plan. I used to have company meetings, and I would tell the employees, I'd say, if you're not in the employee stock plan, you are wasting money, because I'm giving away money. I'm giving you a match.
Right.
For every dollar you put up, you get a match. And eventually it took on, it took hold. People started believing it. And we've made, Fidelity is average return to shareholders over from 1985 to last year averaged 25% compounded.
Wow.
Annually. And Warren Buffett has averaged about 22.
Right.
So we're really.
Is that a little bit of a stick in the eye?
Yeah, are you talking trash to Berkshire Hathaway? What's going on?
You got 3 points on him. I like it.
I think I'm probably more involved in the business, or was more involved in the business than he is. He buys them and lets. Okay, this is a good manager. Let him run. And we never believed that. We believed that we hoped we had good managers when we bought companies and merged them in, or we bought other disparate businesses that were maybe not related, but we always monitored. And we always made change. If it wasn't working out, we made change. If you don't, if you allow mediocrity to gain traction in your organization, you're going to become mediocre. Simple as that.
So going back to when you first started Fidelity, and how many people did you have at that point?
100.
Okay.
Maybe 100, maybe 80.
And
not very many. A couple county operations and a little bit of an agency operation. So really small.
So did you start implementing change right away, or were you
immediately?
Immediately. Okay.
Immediately.
What were you doing immediately?
Well, I put the philosophy together. I put the stock plan in place. I started empowering people. I put incentive programs in place. So within 6 months, we were a different company than any other organization.
Right.
And then we started buying businesses. We started buying companies, and we grew the business. We probably made 100 acquisitions over the 25-year period, and some were big, some were small, but we always had the same approach, the same approach to business. We would bring them in. We made sure that they were going to be embrace our organization and our philosophy, and if they didn't, they had to move on. And about 80% moved on. It was that big of a turnover. So it just, once you got used to it, it was okay. It was, you've always tried to. I found that it was always difficult to convert someone who had a different mindset and wanted to do things not in conformity with the goals and what we were trying to establish. So, and that way, it's a military organization.
Right.
We run it like a military organization. It's disciplined. Our leaders again lead from the front. They don't lead from the ivory tower. We have a very small corporate staff. We never believed in that. Now I'm involved only as chairman of the board. I'm not active any longer, but I've got great people there that grew up and did it all. They did it right, and they've embraced the philosophy. That's why the company's still doing great.
Well, in your mind, is there a difference between management and leadership? And if there is, could you explain what those are?
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't think I don't think leaders are. Sometimes you say leaders are born, and or you develop by you read a bunch of books and so on. I think people have certain characteristics that people want to follow them. They are the leader, but unless they have good judgment and have good skills, then just being a leader doesn't really get it done. So if you can get that skill level, and we have our whole deal is my mission, my men, myself. Take care of it. Take care of the mission. Take care of your men, and things will work out. At the end of the day. So management, corporations in American have managers, and they have the C-suite, and they've got committees, and they get consultants, and we don't do it that way. We take action. We're really focused, and we try and make good decisions. And we make a bad decision, we try and reverse it and make the right decision.
I love that.
Yeah. Some of the things that we're running into is, one, defining those two things, and then recruiting and keeping, highly qualified and competent people. And I think that's one of the things that, guys starting out in business, when they first start hiring people, what are some of the mistakes that you've made in recruiting and hiring people that, now you can look back and say, I would never make that mistake again?
Well, we try not make the same mistake twice.
Right.
That's really a good one, because if you keep on making the same mistake, you're destined to repeat the same error. So what we try and do is we're making when we start a company or buy a company, a lot of times you have people that are running that business, and you're buying it for a good price. We've always been a value buyer. Sometimes they call us bottom feeders, so we're trying to buy it inexpensively. And that company's not successful for a reason, and usually it starts at the top.
Okay.
Usually it's ivory tower. I remember we bought Lawyer's Title, and we bought it actually out of receivership in 2009. And we've been working with them, trying to buy them for years, and we could never get through their C-suite, and they finally had to sell to us. And I don't think there was one or two people that were in the corporate office that survived with us. Wow, we could get rid of all of them because they went bankrupt for a reason.
Right.
They went in receivership for making a lot of bad decisions, and they were interesting. They sat in Richmond, Virginia. They made their corporate edicts. They went to the field. The field said, we're not going to do that. So the field had a bunch of regional offices that replicated the corporate office. Well, what's that all about?
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, it's a waste of money, waste of time. So anyway, that was a interesting situation. So we've been pretty aggressive in terms of taking costs out and synergies and making sure we have the right people. That's the big thing. Get the right people.
Did you have any mentors, people that you looked up to, people that you could lean on for advice and things like that, or was it basically you just working through the problem with more of a peer group?
I would say that my mentorship came from West Point.
Okay.
What I learned about how to deal with people and how to multitask and get the mission, accomplish the mission, came from West Point. But beyond that, I didn't have a bunch of mentors that were really helping me, because most of the guys that were helping me were maybe not perfect.
Right.
They maybe weren't that good. So anyway, I had to kind of figure it out myself.
Is there such a thing in your mind as retirement?
For me?
Yeah.
I think the look said it all right there. That was a big no.
No, I think when I'm 6 feet under, that'll
That's
do it.
retirement.
Yeah. I am trying to prepare my. We've been fortunate. We've done pretty well. So I'm now trying to get organized, because in terms of the structure of my assets and which of my kids are going to be involved and what they're going to run and so we're actually having meetings and we're discussing it, and I'm trying to get my kids thinking of fast tracking them, get them to think of making decisions and implementing the decision, getting the job done. So we've had a couple meetings, and now we're starting to split up various assets, the private assets.
How old are your children, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, they're actually. Lindsay is 39, so she's a MBA lawyer. She's been running our money now for our investments for about 5 years, doing a great job.
Wow.
She's been averaging between 15 and 22% annual returns on her stock market programs that she's working on. So she's doing great. And Rob is here at the hockey club, so he's in analytics, and I'm about to bring him over on the business side. So he's going to be involved in the hockey club. And then I have Courtney, who's 32, and Pat's 30, and they're both winemakers in my wine business.
Wow.
And so now they're going to transition into. They need to start transitioning into the business side and figure out what they want to do. What's important to them, and they have a lot to learn. I probably taught other people that are working with me in various capacities more than I've taught my own children. I've kind of let them go along, and I've made sure they all went out and they did multiple things before they ever got involved with me in business or in one of our companies. So for example, Patrick graduated from college. He became an investment banker for 2 years with B of A Merrill Lynch. Didn't like it. Worked a harvest. Then he worked. He worked another harvest and kind of was working in sales. Then he said, "I like this." So he went to New Zealand and got a master's degree in enology and viticulture at Lincoln. Worked part of a harvest there. Came back, worked another harvest, and this time as the enologist, the chemist. And then he went down to Argentina and worked a harvest there for 5 months. Then he came back up, became assistant winemaker, and now he's a winemaker.
Okay.
So he's an example
Right.
of jumping through all the hoops, not just, okay, here it is, see what you can do. I mean, he's a trained winemaker.
Right.
And now he needs to get in the business side. He needs to start doing that. And the lesson's the same for all of them. They've all done things like that. They've all jumped through hoops.
How have you found balancing the business and the family?
I mean, I've got a great family,
Yeah.
great wife, same wife for 45 years. So a lot of stability in that regard, and we have great family. Christmas and Thanksgiving are fantastic, and we get together as a family. And more, it's getting together with one or two of them at a time, as opposed to all four of them, because it's complicated. Because Lindsay's married. Courtney's got a significant other. Pat's got a significant other. So they're all distracted. They're running around doing stuff. But I probably shortchanged them during the period of time when I was really growing the business. I was working. Honestly, I was working 7 days a week and working 16, 17 hours a day.
Right.
Just going hard. So trying to be better about that.
So why hockey?
Yeah. Why hockey?
Why hockey?
Yeah.
Other than being the greatest spectator sport in the world to watch.
It's a bold statement.
It's really a great game. I played hockey as a kid. My dad was stationed in Ottawa, Canada, and I was there in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. And if you're in Canada,
Playing street hockey and
you play on I tell you, end of October, the ponds freeze over, and you start skating, and you skate till the middle of April, when the ponds kind of unfreeze. And so, and Ottawa is a cold, nasty place. It's not pretty there. When the summertime is beautiful, and that's when the flies come out. So then you get stung all the time. So that was the start of it. So you kind of learn how to skate, and then you start playing hockey, and that was the genesis of hockey.
Well, congratulations on your success with the team this season. I mean, it's been phenomenal watching it. And was it pretty complicated getting the first professional team in Las Vegas?
Right.
Yeah, it took a lot of work. We demonstrated, and I didn't take it seriously from the first 3 years ago when the commissioner called me and said, "We're going to let you run a ticket drive and get ticket to see how many deposits you get." And so we designed a program where people would put up 10% of the value of a season ticket, and it went into an escrow account. And thinking back on it, I'm not sure I would have made that deposit. They were putting a deposit down for a team that didn't exist, for an arena that hadn't been built.
Wow.
So a lot of blind faith. And we got about, within 30 days, we had 10 or 11,000 season ticket deposits.
Whoa.
And all locals. We didn't go.
Yeah, that's so Steve, Steve Duffy told me that 83% of the season ticket holders are Clark County residents.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, that's incredible for a town like Las Vegas.
And that's what we wanted. I wanted firefighters, teachers, policemen, doctors, lawyers, nurses. We wanted locals to come here and be part of this, be part of the program. And it, as it turned out, it's really worked out for us. I mean, success breeds, a lot of support. And so we're fortunate that we've had a lot of success this year. But the town was behind us, and now it's crazy.
Right.
It really is crazy. Amazing.
Just based off the team success, would you say that has driven a lot of the support from the local community and obviously for the team?
I'd say that people maybe were not complete believers when we started out, but when we went through the process and we got the franchise a year and a half ago, or June of was that June of 16? Boy, that was a while ago. And then so I started hiring people. So I hired a GM, and the GM hired an assistant GM, and then I started hiring scouts, and we started looking at coaches. And then on the business side, I hired my business people. But I started with the key guys to start with, and then I interviewed everybody right down the line to make sure I was getting the right people. And I felt very confident in that we were. And we've proven it out have had almost no transition. A few people didn't quite work out, but I promised myself, I'm not going to change my philosophy. If someone's not working out, they got to go. And I don't care what anyone says. I didn't care if they thought I wasn't making a mistake. That was my judgment, it was my call. So we have this great organization. You guys have met some of them, and they're really, really strong people. But as part of that process on the hockey side, George McPhee developed an entire expansion draft protocol. And the scouts would come in. I remember the first meeting we had, it was not organized, but we eventually went through 5 2.5-day mock drafting sessions. So that by the time we got to the expansion draft, we knew the opposing teams better than they knew themselves. Wow. We picked every player that would be available after we did our deals, except one, and that was Dallas. And we didn't know whether it was going to be Cody Eakin or Stephen Johns. And it turns out they made Cody Eakin available. Then we took him. Other than that, we knew every player.
I mean, the way you guys got talent so quickly is atypical for an expansion franchise. You have James Neal, who's got a couple of rings. Marc-Andre Fleury's got a couple of rings. It's not usually you don't get that. You're not that fortunate as an expansion team.
Yeah, the expansion draft this time was slightly more favorable. Other teams could protect 8 skaters and a goalie. So if they wanted to protect 4 Ds, they could. Or they could protect 3 defensemen, 7 forwards, and a goalie. So a few teams went to the 8-skater format. Most teams went to 3 Ds and 7 forwards. And certain people were not available in the draft. So if you were a prospect, entry-level contract, you weren't exposed. And they would expose the unrestricted free agents, but we didn't take any unrestricted free agents because we could take them in July if we wanted to.
Right.
We didn't need to take them. So we went through the process, and we ended up I wouldn't say we manipulated what other teams were thinking, but we perhaps led them to believe we were going to take person A, and we really had our sights set on person B. And then George made 8 deals before we ever did the draft. And the deals were, like Minnesota, they wanted us to lay off Scandella and Dumba, and Zucker was maybe going to be available. And so they gave us Eric Halla, and they gave us a prospect, Alex Tuck. Well, we did really well.
Yeah.
Really, really, really well. But we did, so that was a deal that was made. And then other teams, Columbus, we actually knew we were going to take Carlson. That was our target.
Carlson's leading the league, he's third in the league in goals right now.
He is.
Leading the Western Conference.
He's really, and he's a great young Swedish
He's 24, 25?
25. Great young Swedish player. But as part of that, we took on a contract, the Clarkson contract, who's on IR, long-term, and he's never going to play again. He's got a bad back injury. So we took on his contract, which was insured, but it gave them cap space. So they gave us their number 1 pick, and they gave us a number 2 pick. So we kind of took on a contract and got the guy we wanted, but we got a number 1 pick, and we got a number 2 pick. And then their number 1 pick, we swapped with Edmonton, and we went from 23 or 24 to 13. And we laid off someone at Edmonton to do that swap. So there's all kinds of machinations that were going on in this draft that were very, very interesting. So people say, well, the draft, you had a good deal, it was easy. It wasn't easy.
This doesn't sound easy.
It wasn't easy at all. And we had criteria. We had 9 criteria. And the number 1 criteria was character. We wanted guys with character. They were going to be team players.
So someone like Derek England, for example, who's a Vegas native.
Character.
Enforcer. Yeah, he's a great
character.
guy.
It is at the end of his career, but he really wanted to be here, and he is a leader in that locker room. He's a great guy.
Were the players from the other teams that came on board with the Golden Knights, were they pretty receptive to moving to Vegas and being part of an expansion team?
It's part of their collective bargaining agreement. If they get traded or picked up like that, they got to go,
Right.
or they don't get paid. So I believe some of them were a little bit in shock that they were exposed and that they weren't protected and that they couldn't make a deal to stay where they were. But the one thing about Las Vegas, it's really a good town. It's not about the Strip. It's a community, and it's a lot of. It's probably like Salt Lake. It's not much. Salt Lake's bigger, but you've got communities and churches and schools, and people want to grow up in a community here, and that's what we have. We're in Summerlin now, and we knew that if we got the players in and they started seeing the way the organization was structured and the focus the organization has. And so our job was to give them a great facility, this practice facility. They have a great place to play in T-Mobile Arena. It's one of the best in the league in terms of sight lines and getting the fans close to the action, the way the arena's set up. And then we try and do, and I talked to the players, and we have had a couple of sessions. And I said, my job is to make sure you get everything you need so you don't have to worry about anything while you're skating. We're going to provide you and your family, your doctors to go to, dentists to go to, schools to attend, churches to attend, depending on your religion, if you're going to church. We're going to do everything we can for you, and your job is to win. That's it. Win.
So you kind of took the philosophy from Fidelity, like not just user, customer experience, but also employee experience, and kind of mapped it onto the Golden Knights.
Absolutely. It's worked, and I try and do little things that we feed the guys. If they're in town, they get fed breakfast and lunch, and it's good meals. This is top quality food. A lot of teams don't even feed them. They just have some sandwiches laying around. I was going in a month and a half ago, and it took the players a while to get comfortable with me because I'm a different kind of owner. I'm out there with them a lot, and I don't want to intrude, but I want to find out what they're thinking and what they need. And Fleury drove in, and his car was dirty. I said, "Well, boy, your car's dirty. It's a nice car." I think he was driving an Audi that day. He said, "Yeah, I haven't had time to get it washed." So 2 days later, car wash and detail twice a week when they're in town. They stack them up, get their car washed, and they get it detailed. Don't pay for it. Just take care of it. And the first couple days, no one was getting their car washed and detailed. They probably didn't believe it. And I went down, I had a meeting, and I said, after they came off the ice, like they're going pretty soon, I said, "Okay, guys, in my system, it's use or lose." And like, what do you? I said, "If you don't use that car wash and detailing, I'm taking it away. I better see some cars lined up there if you want to use it. If you don't want to use it, it's gone." And next day, 17 cars.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And we do things like one of the guys came up and said, "Well, gee, can we get some concert tickets for the Wives when we're out of town?" And the first response is, "Well, we don't know how to do that." I said, "No, we got suites. They're priority. From now on, if they want concert tickets, we're going to set them up and take care of them, and they're free." And so we take care of the family. So
Right.
I think 15 of them went to see Katy Perry last weekend.
That's cool.
Which is great. And they were in the bunker suite, so they got
Right.
They had great seats. I knew that players like to play ping pong,
Yeah.
so
Oh yeah.
We can get behind that. We love ourselves some ping pong on this side
It's
of the
funny
table.
you say that because these two knuckleheads here are like in war together, like against each other.
Well, I got a ping pong table.
That's
so it's
awesome.
That's
right
great.
downstairs in the players' lounge. We're going to do a bunch of improvements around here to make this place really have that culture feeling, which we haven't done that yet, but we're going through that process right now. So I probably have another 5 or 6 things that we kind of did that are special for the players and the coaches, just to make sure they know
Provide quality of life.
it's a team. It's a team.
I do want to ask you before we finish up, which is about Folded Flag, and I believe that's the name of the nonprofit.
Yep.
Okay. Could you tell us about what you're doing with that?
Well, as you know, when someone's killed in combat, especially back in my day, they got their funeral paid for up to $2,000, and they got a check for $10,000.
Right.
That's all the family got.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get anything else. So, I think it's a disaster. I mean, I think it's just an insult to our military. So years ago, after 9/11, I said we should be doing something for soldiers or contractors that are killed in combat, and that was where we started. And so we have a whole system designed that the spouse, usually it's a wife, usually it's a guy who's 28 years old, and the spouse is 23, and they've already got 2 kids. And they're probably from the South,
right?
And they have I think 90 days they get kicked off the base if they got base housing, because once he's gone, he's gone. So we give the spouse a stipend, and the stipend is enough to provide for their basic support and to get her back in school or trained. And then we provide scholarships for their kids. And the scholarships don't start at college; they can start in kindergarten.
Right.
And if there's special needs, they get some extra money. And I think we have it set up so that each family can potentially receive $150,000 in various forms. It all comes from this foundation, and the foundation is a little bit unique in that all expenses are paid for by a couple of my companies that are public companies that have said, yeah, we'll take care of the expenses. That way 100% of every dollar that comes into us goes to the recipient, goes to the beneficiary. And we're doing well, and it's tied in with the hockey club, and that's a good thing to be tied in with. And so we've got some very, very good sponsors now, and we have more on the way. So now
I think BlackRifle Coffee might be one of those sponsors.
Yeah. You guys are in.
Nice.
You guys are in. So we're going to expand it now to help servicemen they're disabled.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of get bigger as we got to walk before we run, but that's kind of the idea. So it's all about taking care of the guys that take care of us.
Well, we are out of time officially. We've actually gone over about 10 minutes, I believe.
Wow.
Mr. Foley, I can't thank you enough for
Thank you so
spending
much.
the time with us today.
Wow,
I know your time is precious.
Pretty chatty.
Yeah, that was amazing. Seriously, I can't thank you enough. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
And thank you for everything you're doing. That's awesome.
Yeah, we really
and
appreciate it.
We're gladly supporting any way and means that we can. So
Thanks. No, it's good, and I'm having a good time. I'm having fun.
Perfect. Well, I know you'll be an inspiration. I know that people will love hearing this story and your story. So thank you once again from Launch Code Podcast. That's Bill Foley. And if people want to talk, or if they want to learn more about the Folded Flag, how do they find it?
We got a website.
Yep.
So Folded Flag, foldedflagfoundation.org.
Okay.
And we have clips of recipients, scholarship recipients, and John Coogan's our director.
Okay.
And he's very, very responsive.
Perfect. And then, of course, we all know the Golden Knights. So
Yeah, go Knights, go.
I think it's ESPN.com.
yeah, cool, awesome.